Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you so much for joining. We are joined with my special guest today, Joseph Reyna. How are you doing today, buddy?
Pretty good right now. A little hectic a while ago. Good at the moment.
Yeah, energy's on high when things aren't working right. And, I always take that as a sign. I'm like, well, I guess we're on the right track, because it seems like things don't work out way before time if they're not supposed to. But if it's that last minute sort of hectic things going wrong, it seems like that high energy stuff is typically the ones that are trying to stop the information, put it that way. Well, that's cool. So yeah, I got to read many people have probably already read Incredulous, which came out in 2016. And you've got a follow-up book that was really one big book, and you broke it into two sections, right?
Yeah.
And then the second one is called what was the title of the second one? The Truth.
I'm kind of like, really, I don't want to call it that, but it's going to be Dragon Slayers, plural. It has to do with the Draco reptilians, that we are the Dragon Slayers, sort of. So
okay.
That's something that was downloaded to me, and I'm like, really? I don't think it's going to go over, but all right.
So then there's like an in between one. That's a really quick read. It's definitely, it's just packed full of information. I read it today in like, I don't know, a little over an hour or something. It's called Twilight's Last Gleaming. And well, man, I couldn't believe all the information in there. It really ties together the Incredulous and your upcoming book. It's a great read. If anybody wants to pick it up, they can get it for what, 99 cents on Amazon right now. So you can get it, download it to your device, any device, and definitely recommend it. In fact, I left a review on it today.
It's a summary of the research I did for both books. And at the time, I wasn't sure if I was ever going to release my name out there or do any interviews. So I used the pseudonym Archangel. So it'll say by Archangel.
Right, I noticed it. I got the screenshot up now, and there's a link also below in the description.
Yeah. The cover is basically the destruction of the planet Tiamat and the formation of Earth in the process.
The Tiamat was actually located where the asteroid belt is now, right?
Yes, there were no inner planets as far as the research I'm uncovering. That the inner planets came in later. Mercury was the core of that world. That's why it's solid iron.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So a lot of packed information, and really my normal audience here, I think it really seemed like you were speaking to the people that are typically in my chat, these light worker type beings that never felt like this was home, and they felt like they're here for some reason, but they're ready to get the job done and get the heck out of here.
Most of them are just ready to get the heck out of here, I'm finding out.
I definitely know the feeling. So yeah, you talk about the event. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about this event, and a lot of people think it's new information because Allison Coe sort of put it out in some of her sessions or whatever. But this really isn't new information, is it?
No, Wilcock wrote an amazing book on ascension mysteries, and he goes into a great deal of research back thousands of years. He uncovered that on the back of the dollar bill where it says Novus Soculum, Novus Order Soculum or whatever, the New World Order, the ages, the new order of the ages is the way it's translated. But he said back then, and it was well understood, and his evidence is really rock solid. He said it's actually the word ages can be, it can be used for two different meanings, and one of them is race, like a race of people, the golden race. So the new light bodies are the golden race, and they've always known that there would be an event that would cause this change in human DNA form, and we become this golden race. The Illuminati, the Cabal, believe they are the golden race, and so they've kept this information to themselves and kept it quiet so that we really wouldn't be alerted to what's supposed to be happening, how to prepare for it. You know, working out all those, what would you call those things? Luggage of all the old problems, the karma, having to break through. And it's bad enough having to deal just with the karma you're dealt with, but having to go through time. I had an interesting situation where someone told me that they had seen me, like it was like astral projection kind of thing, right? And they laid their head on my shoulder, kind of like thank you, and I'm like ah, and they said there was an arrow here embedded in here. It was festered really bad, and I'm like okay, that never came up. But as soon as I looked, it was there, and then I started looking into what caused that, and it was tribal jealousy. I was shot from this angle, just above, down, a suicide kind of thing, but it got embedded really deep. And then the guy who was next to me, a friend, he immediately reaches for it and breaks it off, so it can't be pulled out. It was like, you know, they were wanting to kill me slowly, or just have me die slowly. And anyway, it was interesting how that turned out. And I found it strange that I simply just forgave these people. Even in that time, when I came back, I could have killed them slowly. It would have been the problem, but it was they weren't worth it in a way. Anyway, it was strange, and it was every time I'd look there, it was just a festering wound, and I'm trying to erase it, just remove it, just it wouldn't go away. It was there. I had to deal with it, and so these things are showing up. Also, I just came back from the Ozarks. I was out in Arkansas. There's apparently pyramids all over the planet that are being activated, and somewhere out there in that region, these were natural pyramids grown back thousands of years ago, about 10,000 years ago, by Thoth. I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly. And also there's legends of an emerald crystal out there and a blue crystal of knowledge, and the way these are all formed and the way they activated. A friend of mine was really getting hammered by the energy. So I went out there to help her do some work and understand what was going on. And now manifestations have started happening. Several people are calling me in, talking to me about these manifestations of things that should be impossible. A CD of hers broke, and it was a 20-year-old CD. You cannot buy it. It was she's in marketing, and so there was a promotion from Heineken. And everywhere we went, she was playing this song, and it was a very heavy bass song, very, very heavy bass. Had 5 words to the whole song. Can you feel it? It's coming, or something like that. But and so she was projecting it to this wave, this approaching energy wave, and so she liked it for that reason. But she apparently pulled it out because she was going with another friend of hers the day after I left, and it broke in 2. And it was all scratched up, and she hadn't saved it in her computer, and she was really sad about it. But, oh, well, it broke. She got to listen to it. And then when she was in the car, she opened up her case to play something else, see what her friend wanted. And it was a brand new Heineken CD. It said Heineken from the beer on there. It was a different color, and it had that song on it, but it had other songs on it as well. These were 20-year-old promotional. She's never seen that before. She never had it. It just manifested. And these manifestations are starting to happen. I checked with someone who has knowledge of this timeline, and she said it's time. It's time, and the energy is going to get far more intense. This is April 2018, and by September, the energies will be far more intense. She called these baby burps, what people have been feeling, and what people have been feeling. Some of you know Angela, the one with her son, Christopher.
Yeah.
I was watching the energy coming in from the sun. We had a really strong, the sun itself, solar storm, there was no solar storm per se, but the radiation that was getting through, that was intense. It was just the little lines that look like earthquake seismometers. It was just red, just solid red, scratching back and forth all the way across. It should have been blue and red lines. It was just red. So it was really intense. And she told me, hope she doesn't get upset here. She was on the bed just laying all day saying, God, please kill me. Because, it was like the pain was whatever it was going through. And she wasn't the only one. I had other friends of mine who went through the exact same thing. Never got out of bed that day, had to have someone bring them something to drink, or they were miserable. And so I worked on them. And the second event, which was a very powerful solar storm that went to a 7, that one, they hardly felt it after the energy. And basically what you do for the energy, I'm using the word grounding. I don't really like that. What you're doing is if you're not somehow connected to the center of the earth, when you're getting this energy that's coming through, because more of it's getting past our energy fields, you're just absorbing it. It's hitting you. You're loading up with it, and your body really can't deal with it. So if you sort of see yourself as a lightning rod that's just directing the energy like a lightning rod would without getting hurt into the earth, then it won't hurt you So work on that if you're having trouble with these incoming energy fields. We're getting one right now. The sun's up at a class 5 storm, solar storm.
Yeah, I noticed that today. So we've got actually from an electrical standpoint, grounding is a pretty good way of explaining it, isn't it? Because it's like take a walk out in the grass with bare feet and literally ground yourself, and it might actually help those energies just pass right through you. And you know.
Yeah, drain the energy, because the shoes that we wear are rubber, and you're supposed to have your feet on the earth for quite a period of time. Everybody who meditates is saying that now.
It's wild. So you mentioned something I wanted to go back to. Oh, David Wilcock. I remember the part you were talking about. It was in the Ascension Mysteries book, was it?
Yes.
It was towards the end, and he was actually he had really solid research into this, I thought, because he was actually talking about the founding fathers and how their intentions weren't what we see with the Cabal nowadays, that they actually didn't see themselves as the elite like the elite of today do, and they saw it as everyone back then, but sort of it got hijacked at some point. And I don't know if it's the whoever these secret societies are sort of took it over or whatever. But yeah, the whole last part of that book really dives in deep with this golden race, as you said there, and how it was just all about our transfiguration, really, like Jesus did in the
that was the whole point of the crucifixion, and that's why the book deals with it, Incredulous, so much with that event, because he didn't come to die for sinners, which is what all the savior gods did before him. And we've been taught, you're a sinner, and if Christ were to somehow materialize in front of you, you're supposed to consider yourself a sinner, drop to your knees, ask for forgiveness, and Christ would not see you like that at all. He'd see you as that he's your brother. Literally, he'd ask you to get up. And we were not taught to see him in that way, that he is God. And there's an interesting verse in the Bible where they ask him, are you good? And he says, I am not good. There's only one who is good, and that is the Father in heaven. And that doesn't really make any sense. But in the Greek, there are no double O's. There's only a single O in that particular in that alphabet. So you don't have like the word took, T-O-O-K. It would be a different word. Anyway, so when you actually translate it correctly without the double O, they're asking him, are you God? And he says, no, there's only one who is God. And he didn't say Father, he said the source creator in heaven. So
yeah, I've noticed that a lot of the when you go outside of the Bible and you look at some of the other texts of Jesus that weren't included in the Bible, the word they used was actually that he used for father was actually more like parent, and it included they actually translate it as father mother when you read it.
Yes, that is the correct translation. And the mother part of creator is far more a percentage. It's not 50-50. It's more like 75-25. The masculine is 25. The feminine creator is more energy. What the Holy Spirit is a feminine energy. She's a counselor. She's a creator. It's a very creative energy. With the masculine energy is more of a consciousness, a very strong, powerful consciousness, and also somewhat destructive. So it's and without both, you cannot have the creation. So that was a surprise to me when that happened. The feminine was far more a part of it, but the masculine priest didn't like that. So they actually went in and they said, oh, they didn't change the word. They had to count every letter. They changed it. Shekinah was in there before. You had Yahweh, that was the masculine. Shekinah was the feminine. There was always the two. And they removed the Shekinah from there.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot. There's been this huge suppression of the feminine throughout all of the history, that whenever you really get in there, look, and it's not hard to find, but for someone who's just kind of casually reading the Bible, they won't find these things. You have to have that desire, that hunger to seek out.
Well, you'll come across it real quick in Paul, where he says, women aren't even supposed to read it. Their husbands have to read it for them or tell them what it means. And they can't ask the pastor a question, the preacher, whoever is there. They have to go to their husbands. Okay, well, when you actually analyze that in the Greek, Paul was very well educated Greek. He was a Roman citizen, and he grew up learning Greek customs. you find this out later when they arrest him. They're going to flog him, and he says, "Is it customary to flog a Roman citizen?" They're like, "Whoa, Roman citizen? No, no." So they protect him, but he was a Jew as well. Well, he married into the I believe it was the Benjamite tribe, so he converted, and so when he got the messages of this Savior who resurrected, well, he knew those stories, that was all, paganism. So he had to try and weed it out. Anyway, Paul was incredibly educated. So it would be like a college student writing a letter to someone and explaining what's going on with the church. And then you can see right where it changes to someone in kindergarten, or well, let's say he's not in junior high yet. Okay, he's elementary, writing in there that the women are not supposed to, ask questions or, lead or preach or any of that. So right away you could tell that this is not the same person. The scholars immediately, you recognize that whoever wrote those 2 lines, if you just remove them, it flows beautifully. When you add them back in there and you can see the language, the actual language, it was, the original translation, the oldest ones, you'll see right away he did not write that. Somebody with a much lower intellect wrote that one. Filled all those gaps.
I think it's really neat the way that we've both done our research and come to the same conclusion with the fact about Jesus and his true purpose for coming. I actually found out just through Bible reading myself, just discovering things and going and reading it again and say, well, did Jesus really say he came to die on the cross? I mean, did he ever? Because he was asked specifically a few different times, He'd say we'd do things he did and greater. He was asked, what must I do to inherit the kingdom of God? And he told the guy to go sell all you got and give to the poor. It was always about love and how you treat people. And
well, listen to the word. The guy saying, how do I inherit? Well, how did he inherit his wealth? He didn't do a damn thing. He was just born and he inherited his wealth. So how do I inherit this too? Right. Goes, well, you're going to have to work for it. And he goes, what? I don't want to do that.
Right. The guy turned and went away sad or something. Yeah. I think it reads. But yeah, it's really right there in the Bible. And I'm glad that you were able to use the Bible and other sources to really come to the same conclusion.
I was sort of asked by the Holy Spirit to write this work. And I said, yeah, whatever. And that ain't happening. And it just kept getting stronger and stronger. I said, the only way I will write it is if 80% of what I'm going to quote and address, because everything we're talking about, that's actually in the book. What the things were about Paul, the writings, and how that was switched out. And it was tricky getting it into a novel, but it worked great. It came out really good. These people, what was I talking about with Jesus just now? Kind of lost my train of thought.
Just the way they try to turn him into a blood sacrifice rather than just how he came to actually teach us to love and to live, and that he treated us like brothers rather than like he put himself on a pedestal above us.
Yeah, that wasn't it. I just totally lost what we were talking about. No, everything, it's in there. In the oldest Gospels, it mentions exactly what he was talking about. And the hardest thing I had to do, and the most research that went into it, was finding the evidence for him being guilty, because that just completely threw away the entire innocent lamb led to slaughter, which is what all the Savior gods were. They were all innocent lambs led to slaughter. You're saved by the blood of the lamb. Well, Jesus was guilty.
Of sedition, right?
Yeah, of sedition. And if he was, and people are guilty of sedition today. That one actress that held up, Trump's bloody head, that's sedition. Okay, you did that back in Roman days. You were crucified. Today, he's looking for a job, but there were penalties for that stuff. And back then, any sedition, there was a guy and he was a Roman citizen. Okay, and he showed up to a banquet and he was dressed somewhat similar to the emperor Tiberius, and Tiberius had him crucified. Okay, and authors, the historians of that time, they're very careful about what they write about Tiberius, because he would crucify you if he didn't like. And then not only that, he would burn all your work, so as if you never existed. And they knew this. He'd done it already. So they were very careful what they wrote about him concerning, his behavior and how he acted and things he said. So Christ being guilty, that was really tough, because I'm like, well, isn't he innocent? The innocent, that's what I was raised in understanding. And so I had to just completely start questioning everything. And then just, belief started getting in my way. And I had to, well, is he guilty? What was he guilty of? Okay, first, when I found out the Romans arrested him, it was a Roman arrest, that kind of started changing things. I go, well, we were told it was a Jewish arrest. And they've taken it out of the Bible. When you go read, and it's only found in John, when you go read John, go read the Gospel of John right now, it'll say that an officer and some soldiers arrested him. And sometimes they'll change it and say that it was an officer and some men. And all the other ones say it was some thugs, it was some priests, it was some high priests, that all these individuals were involved. And I could not find it. I had 17 different versions of the Bible that I was doing my research with. Plus I had all of my databases in the computer, and I could not find it. But my sister was throwing away her Catholic Bible. It was like a big old thick one. She got married, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, can I have that? And it was in there. That's the only one that had it. And Jerome, when he translated the Bible, and he did a great job, in John, it states that Jesus was arrested by a tribune and his cohort. And that pretty much sounds like an entourage today, like the movie Entourage. You got your little group with you, a cohort. Well, that's not what it meant back then. The Roman legions were 6,000 men, and they were broken into 10 cohorts of 600 men, each commanded by one tribune with 6 centurions, because of one for each of the 100. And that was the way the Roman army was structured. So one tribune, it would be like me being arrested, and you hear in the newspaper or see in the internet, Joseph Reyna was arrested by a Marine officer and some Marines. And okay, but if it said a Marine Corps colonel and a battalion of Marines,
Right.
you know, like, wait a minute, oh, what happened here? You know, that's literally what happened when he was arrested. A battalion of soldiers. And these legionnaires were trained for 5 years. They were always outnumbered 10 to 1 when they went to combat. It was just standard. They had better armor. They had armor, period, the metal. The others really didn't have that. They had leather. And then their swords, and they were trained to basically hold the land. They were standing on the soil, 5 feet diameter circle. They were standing on and fight in unison with the man next to them. If you cowered in battle and ran, they would basically flog you to death, since if you were a Roman citizen, if not, you'd be crucified. So
that's wild. That really changes the picture that we see in the Passion plays and the reenactments of just like, I don't know, half dozen or so soldiers showing up to arrest Jesus. We're talking, this was a crowd. They would have heard him coming for a while, probably, huh?
Yeah, and with torches, it would have looked like a parade, sort of. And the marching, and their boots were ironclad. They're not their boots, but their sandals were ironclad. So they were coming down a road, and you'd be hearing the cadence of the march. So people knew they were on their way. And so then the Jews needed to take him for the night. So because there might be a rebellion or people might get upset, the zealots already wanted to fight. So at that point, Judas had to make the arrest because he was a witness to what he had done. And Judas was actually a priest of the Sanhedrin. So when he shows up, and it's in Matthew, he says, Jesus says, "Friend, what are you doing here?" And the word wasn't friend, it was comrade. It's the only time Jesus calls anyone comrade. Comrade, when they had 8 different levels of friend, comrade is the highest. This is someone you'll die for. This is your closest of friends. And Jesus doesn't ever address another disciple as comrade, except there. He says, "Comrade, what are you doing here?" So he had to arrest him, even though it was illegal for him to arrest him, because a friend cannot be a witness. You can't witness against your friend. But since he was the only witness they had at the moment, he had to do the actual arrest for the Sanhedrin, and then they would keep him overnight. And what they were trying to do overnight was find something to find him guilty of, so they could postpone his execution, bring it before Tiberius, and execute him later is fine, just not tonight, because that was a huge celebration, and there might be a revolt, and that's what they feared, because they knew they weren't going to survive a revolt.
So that really gets into some of the other really interesting research you've done into actually who Judas was and why he's been sort of given this bad name over time. Writing in just the fact that the twin, the Thomas, and all of this appears to have been Judas, right? And he was actually the dearest or the closest.
Maybe he was Jesus' identical twin brother.
Right. That's wild. So it's like
the painters like Leonardo da Vinci, he knew this, and he paints him to the left side, the identical twin. And then Nicolas Poussin, he also, once he found out, because he wasn't a Mason, he did a self-portrait. He doesn't have a Masonic ring. On the second self-portrait, he does. And he's holding a pad, kind of like this. it's at an angle, and he's holding a pen at another angle. Okay, the pad is at 23.5 degrees. The pen is at 6 degrees. Tiamat rotated at 6 degrees. Earth is tilted at 23.5. And then he redid the paintings he had already done to show an identical twin in the crowd.
Yeah, and we looked at some of those in the last broadcast. I think that's amazing because they didn't want the information out, but yet these artists found ways to encode this information so they wouldn't be lost to time in the history.
On his deathbed, and I've been trying to find the quote, it was quoted in a documentary. Nicolas Poussin said, "I have uncovered things about Jesus that kings would not be able to pry from me, and perhaps after I'm gone, maybe no one will ever find out again."
Oh, wow. So the true message of Jesus, while we're on that.
That's where I got lost. It was to show that a flesh and blood human, not a demigod like Hercules, could metamorphose into a light body. That was why he came. He's the example. Edgar Casey said Jesus was the example. He's, what we're supposed to be, and basically personified it as a human being converting to being of light. Now, Jesus took 3 days to do it. Wilcox says that these other guys, they take 13 years to do it. I had originally heard 26 years, but his research is showing 13 years. And Jesus is saying we're going to have to do it much shorter than that, as this particular wave is coming. If you've ever seen the Aurora Borealis, and most people haven't, I haven't seen the actual Aurora Borealis, but as you get more and more different levels of energy in the atmosphere, the higher ranging ones are sort of red and green. But once they get lower in the atmosphere, they start showing blues and purples and yellows. Well, that's the color of this approaching wave. It'll be like the Aurora Borealis. It'll literally cover, and that's the Inca say that the Aurora Borealis was supposed to be the change that we get. It has the encoded information in the light that hits our DNA and converts us over. Those are some ancient legends of the Inca, and they said that the earth would be covered with these serpents of light. And in all the old ancient texts, they mention attacks of serpents of light. The Inca mentioned the attacks of serpents of light.
And rainbow serpents too, right?
Well, if you're seeing these dragon-looking things, the way they move and the way they shimmer like a jellyfish, in the way that the light moves through them, kind of in a frequency, just kind of oscillating
like bands.
They look like a living thing. And so you see these, you've never seen them before. You're in the jungle and you're seeing these things all over the sky, and then you get a pole flip. Well, you think the Earth was attacked by these things. That would be the legend afterwards.
That makes a lot of sense. I asked
my friend, "Are these the serpents of light?" And she said, "Yeah, they're the serpents that bring to change, the end of history."
So we've got these cosmic energies coming in, along with the fact that, and this is like science. I mean, you can look this up now. Our magnetosphere, or our protection from cosmic rays, are really down. I mean, Mr. MBB333 has been doing readings of the C range of the UV waves, and they're hitting the ground.
I just came across that's really damaging to your body, and that they've never detected that here before.
Yeah, normally it's only up in the upper atmosphere, but they're getting readings of like 70, which is normally 0. They're getting readings of around 70 or 80 in some places down at ground level.
Remember sunblock when it first came out? I was in the Marine Corps, and I was in the rifle range because I was a primary marksmanship instructor. So in the morning, I'd get like my face would be windburn on this side, and then in the evening, I'd get sunburn on this side from the sun hitting all the white stones that these guys were laying on, this white gravel. And so I had a really nice looking tan, but I couldn't even smile because I was like cracked. And I didn't really want to be tanned. I needed some sunscreen because I just my skin burns. And so I went to the doctor, and they prescribed 35, sunblock 35. I had to get a prescription. You could not buy sunblock 35. You could buy sunblock 10, but no higher than that. And now what they got, sunblock 100. Each number represents 1 hour you can be in the sun without damage. So sunblock 10 means you can be out there for an hour. It's as if you would have been protected. You would have to be out there 10 hours to get the exposure. In other words, it would protect you 10 hours worth of protection. So you shouldn't even get suntanned at all, right?
Right.
If you're protected for 10 hours from the radiation of the sun, and if I'm protected 35 hours, that's more than 24 hours a day. I shouldn't be getting sunburn. I'm still getting a little bit sunburn. And now they got sunblock 100, and then you're getting fried. So something's wrong. That stuff's getting through, and UV's way off the charts.
So we got the solar storm and so with the weakening of our quote unquote protection or whatever, and then the increase in these cosmic and solar waves, we're expected to see these aurora all the way down by the equator, right?
Completely covering the planet. Yes.
Yeah.
Also, the poles are moving faster as the shields are collapsing. There's an amazing quick video. It's 8 minutes. It's called 5, and it's the number 5 Truths About Magnetic Reversal. It's put out by Suspicious Observers. Great job. And he's showing you how the field has been weakening, and now it's weakening even faster, and the poles are shifting even faster. The South Pole, which was always in the continent of Antarctica, is now in the ocean heading north to meet the North Pole. They're both going at each other, which is not expected.
That's wild. I also saw another site that was showing how they used some of the same satellite image a year or two apart at the same exact day, and you could actually see how not only is the magnetic poles shifting, the actual geographic poles are moving. We're not spinning at the same spot anymore. Yeah.
Right. The wobble.
So that's amazing. So you mentioned in the book, once again, I want to mention for those coming in late, it's down in there's a description in the description box. There's a link to the Amazon. It's called Twilight's Last Gleaming. And in that book, you go into some of these cataclysms that the world can experience. And do you think we got outside help to prevent some of this stuff from happening, or do you think
definitely we should have been toast already? We really should have. There was during the last passing of Planet X. And Planet X is not the same as Nibiru. Nibiru orbits Planet X. Nibiru is it's artificial battle star, basically larger than Earth. So, and Planet X is a red dwarf or brown dwarf star, and it's about just mathematically using the science that we have. When they theorized these things, they thought, well, if there was something large enough to start smoldering, kind of becoming a sun, it would have to be 3 times the size of Jupiter. So you've got people out there saying, oh, Planet X is 7 times bigger than Earth. Well, Jupiter's 318 times bigger than Earth, and this thing's 3 times bigger than Jupiter, so we got 900 Earth masses, at least, very minimum. That's why the oceans are, gone, and you got your boats laying on the sand there, and that wasn't the wind, especially if the wind's blowing at you, and the waves are gone.
Right. Okay. So you got into that a little bit in the information, because I was totally riveted to that. The fact that so would that be Nemesis? I've heard people refer to Planet X, or the star that the Nibiru is going around, as being Nemesis. Is that would that be the same thing as Planet X then, or is this something different? Nemesis
would actually be bigger than Planet X.
Okay.
So it'd be something about half the size of the sun. This thing is like 17% the sun's mass. Okay. Planet X. And this other one, and it's the other one is called Hercules, I believe is the name of it. You might have come across it in your research. It's entering our system as well. So it's like all these cycles are all happening at the same time. They're all
are they part of the same system?
Like a bio feed. They're all the lines are just converging at once. It's just a cycle that happens, and we just happen to all fall in the same location all at once. And yeah, there should have been a tremendous amount of destruction. And I go into the destruction that should have hit us. We should have been wiped out electronically already, and that hasn't happened. The sun has not fired a major flare at us since November of 2011. It's just, even though the solar flares were there, the big sunspots were there, and it was firing all the way around the sun as it was going around. Once it faced Earth, because the sun does rotate, I think, every 28 days or something like that. So once it faced Earth, it was just quiet. It was just nothing fired. And just as it's starting to get past Earth, they start firing again. So we get like a glancing glow.
Yeah, we had some near misses. I was like, oh, wow, man. That was because I think we had like an X10 or X11 that just, I mean, we caught like the edge of it, but it didn't, if it had hit us, it could have knocked us back to the Stone Age. So do you think there's ships or something that's blocking, or that they're able to control that, or what?
I think some of it's also prayer here on Earth. In this area, which is called the photon band, we haven't even got into that. Back in '98, Earth entered what's called the photon band. The Russians were the first to discover it back in '65. And when we entered it, the wobble began. That's when Earth started getting a little sluggish. And it's an energy cloud of photons, basically, just high energy area. In this area, legend calls it the dragon's breath. In this region of space, our beliefs become more solidified, more real. And right now, for a while now, the pharmaceuticals have been having trouble getting their drugs past the third stage of testing, because they have to go up against placebos to prove that they work. And the placebos are working better than the actual drug. So they're having trouble getting them licensed, which is why they want to corner marijuana, because the other stuff's not working anymore.
That's amazing that it's like it. I've noticed so much stuff seem to begin to backfire on the powers that be, as it were, with things just like what you're mentioning there.
Everything. They brought in Ebola, and that was an airborne Ebola they brought in. And I'm like, why are they? They're like, oh, we didn't know it was airborne, you know. But they brought them in, and immediately people start praying. They start praying for these people to heal, to contain it, for it not to spread. And millions of humans doing that, even 10 humans doing that, the power of that's astronomical. This energy, the healing, when you're healing someone, the work I've seen done is incredible. But when you have like one horse, a Clydesdale, a big horse, and they're trained to pull heavy loads of lumber, one Clydesdale can pull roughly 7,000 pounds. That's an average for one Clydesdale. So you put a second Clydesdale up there and you add them up, 14,000. Okay, we're going to get 14,000. It doesn't work like that. It's a living thing, so it becomes dynamic. They can actually haul 42,000 pounds. Not quite 7 times 7, but 7 times 6. So you get 2 people praying, now it's 7 times 6. And you get 3 people praying, now it's 7. Now it's that number, 42 times 5. And then it's kind of like with the Fibonacci sequence, but you've got the initial number getting bigger and bigger, being multiplied by the next number, and it becomes astronomical when millions are praying, and it just goes away. It just vanishes. It's gone, and you don't talk about it anymore. So that's what's been happening. That's what's kind of been saving us in a way. But at the same time, it could be detrimental. That's why I'm glad the wave, when it hits, is going to be instant. It's a power, bright flash of light. You're not going to see it coming. It's moving at the speed of light. So I mean, how are you going to see that coming? I turn on my flashlight. You couldn't really time it, you know. I don't care if you're it's 50 miles away, you're going to see it. It's going to be a bright flashlight, but you're going to see it. And you're not going to get too much of not even a second, you know, delay in that. So I'm glad it's instantaneous when it happens, and a surprise in a way. Because also another thing about this, I might have mentioned in the last talk, a friend of mine actually experienced the light going off, an explosion of light around her, and her heart immediately started expanding into that joy and just unbelievable unconditional love they say you feel. And when you're feeling that, there's no way to be in fear, so you'll be okay. And the children, they're going to feel that right away. All the kids, they're going to pick that up before you do. So don't worry about them. They're fine. And you, unless you've been attending some baby sacrifices and spirit burning, spirit cooking last year or something, you're fine. People think, well, I've done some bad things. You have no idea what bad is. No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, that's nice to know, because I know a lot of people are, trepidatious when it comes to, apprehensive. And but yeah, it's none of us are perfect, and we all have things to work on. But really, the key that you brought out in the book is love, right? I mean, that unconditional love.
This one psychiatrist, great guy. Someone stole my package that I have all the audios of him, so I don't remember his name. But he said we're taught that we're selfish, cruel, needy little beings, or whatever. That's our nature. Our nature is what we do spontaneously. So let me give you an example. Is that I come home, I'm tired, it's been a long day. The wife wants to go to this poolside barbecue thing that her friends are throwing luau, whatever, and you got to go, right? So he goes, and he says, let's say I just kind of stray away from everybody, grab me some cold ones, and just go lay by the pool and just hope I'll pass out. take a sip, and I hear a splash, and look over, and it's this little toddler. I don't know where he came from, but you know, he fell in the pool. Man, if only I wasn't so tired, I'd get up and help him. You know, that's
Right.
not going to cross your mind. You're gonna leap in there, forgetting you got your iPhone in your pocket. You're gonna be in there trying to, not even realizing you don't know how to swim. You're gonna try and get that little baby. That's our nature. Our nature is we're selfless and loving.
Yeah, that's kind of funny that the religion sort of teaches us that, you know, we can be good. There was this big movement with the whole Left Behind thing, where that was part of this going around and proselytizing and saying, "Are you good?" and then explain why they're not good and why they aren't worthy and all of this, and why they need Jesus to take on their sins for them to get them into heaven, because it's impossible for them to get there on their own works. And you know, I've noticed that when I got out of the church, I've never been so responsible for my own actions than when I got out of the church. You know what I mean? When I had Jesus to pay for it all on the cross, and just the whole doctrine, you know, you just act differently. You're like, well, it's just in our nature to be bad. And, you know, we got Jesus to take care of it. But once you realize you pay for your own actions, and you respond a lot differently than when you think somebody else has got your back and is going to just take it all on for you, and that you aren't really responsible because it's your sinful nature, you know?
Mm-hmm. The, this thing that's coming, Alice and Co. caught a lot of flack for mentioning March 2018 as the time of the event, but I listened to her. She didn't say it's going to be March. She said the majority of the individuals that just happened to mention this, because she doesn't go and ask them about it, they were kind of grouping into the March group, but others were out 6 months out. And the information I'm getting is 6 months out, but it's not the final wave. There's another one, a really big one, and the main one. Okay, and this energy, well, what is it, and where's it coming from? It's from the center of the galaxy, and anyone who's ever meditated and gone to the center of the galaxy realizes there's like unconditional love there. It's like creator, just the energy of God, and that's exactly what Wilcott ran into. He goes, "What is this stuff?" And the ancients say, "This is me. I am the creator. This, what you're seeing is the creator coming at you, basically love." And you hear other people saying that they've had dreams that this wave of love is coming to the earth. Well, that's what this is, unconditional love. So when unconditional love meets psychopath, it doesn't work out so well for the psychopath, especially if the energy is way too powerful for it. And these beings will literally be undone. I don't know how else to say it. Vaporize some of them. Some will be dead and the body will be there. They've known this. They have known this, and they that's why they created the breakaway civilization. They were going to basically take all the gold and take all the good stuff and get in their ships and leave us here for the approaching wave and try and escape it. But there's no escape. They thought it was coming from the sun. That's where Wilcock's research leads him. He calls it the solar flash. It is coming from the sun, but everyone who's seen vision sees that it's coming from through the sun. So it's actually the central sun, and that happens around Christmas time, November, that the sun is sort of with its back to the central sun of the galaxy. And so that energy is going to come through the sun. It's going to be like a double whammy sort of. But the energy does not come directly and only from the sun. It's sort of filtered through the sun. The sun has a big role to play as far as like the fact that we look the way we look on Sirius, the star, the dog star. It's a blue star, and I've heard that there's 280 habitable worlds orbiting that thing. On those worlds, when you live on any of those worlds, your body will adapt to the planet and to the sun that's in that system. It will sort of regulate what the perimeters of your DNA are, what you can and cannot do, what you can and cannot see, how long you live, that sort of stuff. And here on Earth, this sun, it actually sort of works to make you a little more spiritual, kind of calm you down in a way. It used to be red. When Tiamat was the world, the sun was red. After the explosion of Tiamat and the planets took new positions, the new formed planets that used to be moons, some of them, it became yellow, and now it's gone to white. So it is changing. It's helium was detected back in the 70s, the first helium flare. So it's changed from major hydrogen, a little bit of helium, to more helium now, and that's why it's white, I think. But they're not sure why it's white, actually.
It's, for me, it's strange that people just don't notice. They're like, no, it's just always been like that. You know, remember yellow, finding the yellow crayon, and you
Yeah.
know, when you were a little kid and you're making the sun, and it's like white now. It looks like somebody's arc welding. It's almost got a bluish tint to it. You know,
Yeah.
it's so white.
So everything that I'm seeing, like, I finally came across this, and you can find it. It's on Planet X News. Just look up Pope John Paul II, November 1980, and Planet X, and it'll come up. John Paul was asked about the prophecy of Fatima, the third prophecy, because the first two came true, and the one in 1960 was supposed to be released in 1960 by that Pope, and the Pope read it, and he's like, these are the ramblings of an uneducated peasant. We can't release this stuff. And so they never released it, and then later people got upset, so then they released some bunny foo-foo stuff that sounded good, and people would, oh, okay, we're good. Though that wasn't the prophecy. He was asked, it was Catholic, German Catholics, and he was asked by a journalist, why hasn't it been released, the actual prophecy? And the Pope, what he says is so interesting. I'm not sure if the journalist fixed it up a little bit because it almost seemed rehearsed. He said, given the seriousness of the contents, and he's talking about the third prophecy of Fatima, and Father Malachi Martin read that. He said, my predecessors in the Petrine offices diplomatically proposed to postpone publication so as not to encourage the world power of communism. How would it encourage the world power of communism? Well, if they were ancient astronaut gods, that would encourage communism, because the church would kind of lose a lot of ground there. You know, the Anunnaki stuff, yeah, ancient astronauts. And then he goes on to say, on the other hand, it should be sufficient for all Christians to know this. He said, if there is a message in which it is written that the oceans will flood whole areas of the earth, and that from one moment to the next, millions of people will perish, truly, the publication of such a message is no longer something to be desired.
Wow.
And I just love Malachi Martin's answer to that one guy who was reading all these. You saw how many cataclysms and destruction were possible on the planet. There's like 20. I left quite a few out, by the way. But we're just in a time and space where all these things are just teetering off the ledge and about to fall, but they haven't yet. Any one of them, complete game changer. And the guy goes on and says, okay, is this from the third prophecy of Fatima? You know, all this destruction. And immediately Father Malachi Martin says, oh, no, it's much worse. He did not hesitate or bat an eye. Immediately said, no, it's much worse.
I found it interesting when I was reading your book about all of the things that could go wrong with everything changing. And it sounded like, you know, we had several things that could end up being an extinction level event, really, like from more than one way, you know. And then I'm sitting there thinking, wow, it's like you can totally see how the Cabal, or the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, the deep state, has been preparing for these things to happen. I mean, building these underground bases and
take
all
Yellowstone.
This stuff.
You know, Yellowstone. Everyone saw 2012, the movie 2012. 2012 was supposed to come out in 2012, and it didn't. It got postponed, and it took a long time. And the reason I investigated why it was postponed, and this is what I got. I couldn't get it in writing. I didn't talk to the directors or the script writers, right? But I did get this information. They said it was not the Earth core heating up that caused Yellowstone to blow up in the movie they created. It was an incoming red giant, brown dwarf star that was moving into the system that caused it to go off. And they came in, no. You're going to change this, that. No, that's not going to go. And so they had to change it. And that's why they had to redo the movie. So at the very end of the movie, though, when they're moving the three ships, or, you know, sunny skies and sun's going down, that's pure fantasy. You would have a nuclear winter for at least 10 years. You would not see the sun for a year and a half. This has been documented because one of these happened. That's how the Dark Ages happened. They call it the Black Death or the Dark Ages. Anyway, in the Dark Ages, they happened right about the year 500 or so, and no one really understands why in that century. And over in Somalia, You got the Somali pirates in that strait right there. Okay, that was one long island shaped like an L with a mountain there. And if you go into ancient documents, you see this. Okay, that mountain was a caldera, and it exploded. And when it exploded, it was like a caldera, like over here in Yellowstone, and it covered the Earth for a year and a half. People could not see the sun at all. And then another 4 or 5 years before they did see get the plant things and have something grow, they couldn't drink the water. The ash just covered everything and made it acidic. So the church, they were taking a tenth of everything. If you were a farmer, they take a tenth of your crop. So the church had plenty of food to survive. And any kings that survived that, they owed their allegiance to the church. And the church decided to just go ahead and rewrite everything. Like, they're the center, the Earth is flat, and they're the only ones you can go to communicate with Creator. So everything was changed. If that caldera had not gone off in the year 535, and I mentioned this in the book towards the end, and the main researcher for this is David Keyes. A lot of work has gone into it. Anyway, you're not being taught this in schools. That this has been proven. This was fact. It happened. Yet the information has never been taught in schools. And
it's funny, as I was reading through the book, I realized how much everything seems to be leading us away from this research I read of yours. And I'm like, dude, even this uptick in the flat Earth of recent, it seems like it's just maybe another attempt to sort of lead people away from some of the research that I was reading in your book. It's just crazy.
There's a better one now. The Russians say that they have document with one particular physicist that the Earth has several layers inside of it, and it has a large crystal that rotates, and I know it does. It has a crystal, and there's another outer layer that spins opposite its direction, and it actually spins faster than the Earth rotates. But they're saying that the Van Allen belts are like mirrors, and they're just mirroring back what's in the core. So you've got a core the size of Mercury. Our core is actually the size of Mercury. And so they're saying, well, when you see Mercury out there, that's the core being reflected. And you see Venus, and you see, I'm like, no. I'm sorry. An image reflected in space is not going to cause tidal changes on Earth like the moon does regularly, And so they're saying that it's just a reflection of mirrors, sort of, because the ancients speak of, when you look at these things, you basically see yourself reflected, everything reflected back at you. Anyway, it's a whole new take on it. I was listening to it, and I'm sorry, the physics and the gravity just don't work on that one. There's just too much to prove that everything is heliocentric, to me, anyway. I've been on ships above the equator and below it, and the water does turn in the opposite direction. So why would it turn in the opposite direction on a flat planet? On a flat table,
like going down the drain, you mean?
Yeah.
I've heard about that.
And hurricanes and tornadoes, they spin in opposite directions there as well. So.
Oh yeah, that's a couple of things I hadn't even thought about. I've got drone footage where you can see the rays from the sun going upward, and if you draw lines back, you can see that the sun is clearly like 10 suns below the horizon.
It's below where airplanes are flying, actually.
Right.
Calculated less than 5 miles.
So yeah, there's
the drones should be able to take pictures of the sun below us, as they're going by.
Right, exactly. But yeah, and and I just see how angry some people get. I just kind of just leave it alone, because people seem to be so stuck on it, and
well, it's a good thing, actually, because if they question that, maybe they'll question Lee Harvey Oswald. And when you look at did you look at the Kennedy papers when they were released? There's 20 shooters. They were actually documented by the FBI. One of them was there were several police officers, but they mentioned there's one guy's name, Tippit, Officer Tippit. He was the one they called the dog man, the guy that was to the right side of Zapruder. And they didn't catch this till much later, but Zapruder panned the area first, right? And by pan, he just kind of said, okay, this is what I'm going to film, but he was filming. And then so when Kennedy came, he goes ahead and gets him again and brings it over. So what they did was they cut the street and the background off, and they put Kennedy's car coming in, like pasted the lower part of the street over the background. So you don't see all the shooters, you don't see all this happening. And the ladies who are standing there, the one in the red and the black coats just behind the car when he gets shot, okay, the film taken from the back facing this way, the women are in opposite positions when it actually takes place. And the red and black is very distinct. And I don't care if you're colorblind, you're going to tell red and black are different. And also the drivers. There's two drivers, and this is interesting because some people remember a four-seater, and some people remember a six-seater. When I did my research, I was looking at a six-seater in the research, but people were saying, no, I remember a four-seater. At any rate, as they're coming up to the grassy knoll, Kennedy's still not dead, and the driver, he's got what looks like a Python 357 right here in his waist. You can see the barrels, and the other guy, the other what are they? Secret Service. He's ducking. Okay, he doesn't want to get shot, and they're slowing down. The police motorcycles are passing them up because they're slowing down so they can get a good shot at Kennedy. And he's got his gun right here because he's going to have to shoot Kennedy if he doesn't get shot. And Connolly's because he did shoot his gun, whether he hit Kennedy or not. He did shoot his gun. Connolly's suit was covered in gunpowder. It was dry cleaned immediately after, within 24 hours, and the car was reupholstered within 24 hours because of all the bullet holes that were in it.
That's amazing. Yeah, there was so much with that, and even got it like remodeled or something that Monday or something afterwards, like where they actually did something with the trunk. That's why when I heard they did some stuff in the trunk too, I'm like, man, was there a shooter in the trunk? Because the way the footage changed, it looked like he might have been shot from someone in the trunk that shot through the seat upward, because you can actually see the projectile go upward, and it wasn't like that when I watched it originally. It looked like he got shot from the front.
When Connolly's sitting kind of down in the little bumper seat, and you see him get shot, his jacket goes up, just pulls like that.
Yeah.
And he kind of goes like this to the side, but he's still holding on to his white Stetson. He hasn't got shot in the wrist yet, where the bullet, is flying around and then hits him in the wrist. Right. It should have hit him in the wrist already. If it came out his chest, within microseconds, it should have moved over and hit his wrist. But he's still holding on to the Stetson for a while until he gets shot in the wrist.
Yeah, that's amazing. Then they come up with the magic bullet theory, which is just it was ridiculous from beginning to end,
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw that when I looked at that, and and I think that's an important thing you bring up, is that if anything to get people questioning things and looking into things, and that's why I really appreciate your book, because man, it's going to really for people that have no idea and they stumble across it, or they just have I don't know, just the desire to look into deeper. It's stuff you can't just blow off. Once you read it, you can't unread it. You know what I mean? And
it's not dry reading. It's not text. It's written as a novel, like The Matrix, because The Matrix really inspired me, and I really loved my talk that I had for 2 hours with the author of The Matrix. When I wrote it, I wanted to keep people interested, and I had to drop a lot of the information I had because it just dragged. It really slowed everything down. That was all the editor said, is you really had to push through some of those parts. So then I had to change it all around and make it much easier to read. And right now, it's been dropped. It's $2.99 for the book. Or if you want to go and try out the Amazon Prime for 30 days, you get to Amazon Prime is $9.99 a month, and you get to read any ebook they have for free. So you can just read as many ebooks as you want, any ebook for free if you're Amazon Prime. And you have 30 days free trial. So in 30 days, you could easily read Incredulous and read it for free. So just sign up for Amazon Prime. If you go to the Acolyte's Quill, that's my site on Facebook, the Acolyte, ACOLYTE''S. And then Quill is like a pen, QUILL. And you'll see a button there that'll take you right to Amazon Prime. Also, there's several videos in there, including the one we're talking about with Wilcock in it. And then there's another one about explosions that were recorded on Mars when Siding Spring went by. And when Siding Spring went by, it got so close that the atmosphere of Mars started exploding. And you can see it on the NASA feed. They immediately cut the link. And so did the ESA and everybody else. But this one doctor was filming with his own camera and telescope on the Canary Islands. And they mentioned that. It's a little 2-minute video. But when Comet Ison came past Earth, we were going to get the exact same thing. And in Bible code, it mentions that in the year, was it 5772, which is 2012, 2013, because of the way they do their lunar calendars, that Earth isn't annihilated by a comet. It doesn't get hit by the comet. It's an electrical interference. So if you read the Thunderbolt's projects, and the atmosphere basically got ignited. And I think that might be the kill shot as well, because if Major Ed Dames is saying the entire Earth burned, if you got a solar flare, you're going to get it burned, but it's going to be one side of the planet. It would have to keep firing and firing as the planet was turning, and luckily get everything. No, everything was burned. The whole planet was fried, and that's what they were saying. And I was wondering if maybe it wasn't a combination of Ison and then also creating solar flares from the sun because of the electrical interaction with the Earth. So I put that in there to demonstrate, that comet was much more powerful, much bigger, Ison, and the Earth has a much more powerful electromagnetic field than Mars does, and a much thicker, denser atmosphere that's been sprayed with aluminum, plenty of aluminum for many years now, and aluminum is highly flammable when it's in that powder form.
Oh, wow. So do you have a release date for when this I guess it'll be this year.
It'll be the summer. It'll be the summer. Yeah, some of the stuff I was doing down in the Ozarks was part of the book. Actually, they're saying, "Wait, hold on, we're gonna get you this, gotta get you that. And you need to experience it. You need to go through it." Just an incredible energy. Again, your beliefs just have to be set aside, just completely put aside. Like that thing I told you with the CD. That's your beliefs are getting in the way of all the incredible things that could be happening right now in your life. Just I guess take it easy, kind of just don't get too wrapped up in the world. I went through really bad, I don't know what it was, flu or something that hit me towards the end of the year, beginning of the year. It was really, really bad. And whenever I go through an experience like that, where you almost feel you're not sure if you would have made it, I always alter whatever it was I'm thinking or doing. The first time it happened, I thought, I cannot hold back if I want to tell somebody something, because I may not be alive next week. I really need to share, or just tell them, hey, I like you or something. And this one was a little different. I said, you know what, I am way too immersed in this planet. I am in, I'm not surfing the waves. I'm in the water, and I don't need to be in the water, in the ocean, being tossed around by the waves. I need to surf over them and just kind of take things with a little grain of salt kind of thing, not really throw myself into something, give a crap, I guess, too much. It's difficult. It really is, especially when you care about things, but it's really the only way you can move forward right now. It's just too much going on. If you start delving into just the unbelievable stuff these people are doing with the children, the trafficking and all that, you just almost get sick. You really do. And
yeah, that's also, why my wife was looking into it. I'm like, look, just convince yourself and then leave it alone, because it can pull you down into a dark hole to where you can't get your mind off of it. I mean, it's just
they're not going to prosecute these people, because if they do, we're going to wake the living dead, the ones that are walking around us, and that could get ugly. So what basically they're telling these people is, you need to retire, you need to resign, and you need to go home, and you need to not run for election anymore, and you need to stay out of the public eye. Otherwise, we're going to have to, come down on you with all this and prosecute you. And I think that's what they're doing. And in a way, it's okay, because they're not going to escape retribution from source, from creator. They have to live. They have to actually experience what every one of those children experienced as the child experienced it. And for every single child they were responsible for.
That's yeah, there's really not much we can do to make it right, but they will pay in the end, I guess. That's the
they'll get to live through it. I mean, they'll actually experience themselves being cut to pieces or whatever by themselves. They'll see themselves do it, because they're the ones that did this child. And you came here to experience. You want to experience that. You get to experience it. You get to experience it from both sides.
One thing you brought up that sort of gave me this idea of, you talked about how many of us have come from the future to come back and shift the timelines into a more positive outcome. And it kind of got this idea in mind of Groundhog's Day. Like, we've come back, we've tried to adjust things, we've had to do it over and over again. Of course, we don't remember, but we're finally getting to that point where we're getting that positive outcome that we've been watching.
I've heard someone say they did it 7 times. I'm not aware of the 7 times thing at all. I just know that one particular time was really bad, unbelievably horrific, because of the energy apocalypse, because of the fear that humans generated on the planet and just shot across the galaxy, because our telepathics are turned on. We just can't pick up information, but our transmitters are on. And other worlds, they don't feel the kind of terror we feel. They just don't. They're not They weren't designed that way. We were designed that way so we could be controlled. So like a dog, let's say you're trying to train a dog and the dog doesn't want to listen, and you show a dog a hot iron or something. Look, I'm gonna burn you with this tomorrow if you don't do what I'm telling you. The dog doesn't understand. They don't get it. So they have to put enough intelligence in us and enough pain receptors in us to understand, if you don't do this, I'm going to hurt you. And then you'll kind of fall in line. That was for control. And that had to do with the reptilians. Anunnaki did not design us that way. They basically made a worker race, a slave race, to help them repair their ship. And before they could just go ahead and let us die off, the reptilians came in. It was a massive solar invasion. That's also in the ancient script of the Hindu. They speak of a demonic race that came in and they won. But then later the other ones came back with special beam weapons, and those were the Velexi, the longer cigar-like ships that created the Thunderbolt-like weapons. And those are the damage you see on the moon. The moon was reptilian, and it was one of their larger war carriers. But there were cities of glass all over the moon, and you can find these all over YouTube with the astronauts footage.
Oh, but, yeah, I've seen that. And the whole thing with the
damage was by those thunderbolts. They would just maintain a thunderbolt in one location, so it creates what looks like a crater to us, but it's not a crater. It's more bowl-shaped.
One of the things that I found interesting, you bring this up, I think you actually brought it up in Incredulous about the moon being artificial, and that's how they were able to actually position it on the day of the crucifixion in front of the sun to create the eclipse. And that was one of the information that they hid during, because I guess there was a full moon at the Passover. Is that
yeah? So it was a night of a full moon, and yet you had an eclipse blocking the sun on the same day.
Which is impossible because it's
so they took it out of the Bible. But a lot of painters painted the moon, and there's this guy piloting the moon looking back at the sun just over the crucifixion. That's in Kosov. And then there's ones that show a red moon or a red circle and a black circle, and you're like, well, what's that? Well, the red one, that was the lunar eclipse that night, because it was a second eclipse, and there was the one in the daytime. And Joel spoke of this. He said in his prophecy, he said, on that awful day of the Lord. Now, awful to us means like really bad, but back then it didn't mean that. It meant full of awe, just like wonderful, full of wonder. Okay, that's what it really meant. That
or awesome would mean to us, I guess.
Yeah. So when it says this place is awful, it means it's full of awe. So on that awful day of the Lord, the day that's full of awe, the sun would go dark at noon, and the moon would return to blood. And that meant there was a lunar eclipse that night, and there was a solar eclipse that morning, or that at noon there was a solar eclipse. And anyway, they didn't know how to explain it, so they just went ahead and dropped it, because you start getting into the moon doing that, then people start looking into the possibilities it's artificial, and you start getting all the evidence for it being artificial. Just look up artificial moon or hollow moon, and it's not like hollow Earth at all. You're going to find at least 7,000 research papers from different people theorizing. Even David Icke has brought up that possibility the moon is artificial, and devotes an entire chapter to it in Human Race, Get Off Your Knees.
So do you think we have you think this is like a normal thing to have these gigantic planet, or even way bigger than the planet of Earth, spheres that are artificial, or even hollowed out planets that they travel around in? Because we got Nibiru is really this sort of thing, and now we got
because of the war they're giant war machines.
Oh,
and
wow.
Earth is so unique and so different from all the other worlds. It has so much life on it, and it has to do because the moon is orbiting it. There are no normal worlds this size with the moon that size orbiting it, because they can't hold the moon that size. They could hold, Newtonian physics calculates about a 30-mile diameter moon distance, 2,160 miles across. It can't hold it. Earth cannot hold it in orbit. So they've always come up with all these theories, but they've never been able to explain how the moon stays in orbit, and it's such a perfect orbit.
And it's always facing us the same exact way.
Just like a space station, always facing one side to the Earth.
Like a satellite, always facing towards Earth, towards the surface, and nobody thinks anything of it. I guess that's so strange. So while I got you on this whole topic of artificial stuff, I've seen all sorts of things about the sun. Do you think we have an instance where they're trying to hide things by placing a ship or a reflector or something like that in place of the sun, or what's your thoughts on that?
I've looked into it a little bit, and what they're saying is that there are these they look kind of like reflectors, and they're hovering in front of the sun the way Soho does. And when there's an eclipse, something gets in the way of the sun that you would notice things get a little dimmer down here. Well,
Hmm.
they use lasers to brighten that those reflectors so the sun's light looks like it's unchanged. And there's videos out there where someone's in Florida and they're just filming, their friends on the beach, and you can see the sun, and then you see an orb move across the sun. It's big. It's a good size orb. I don't know if you saw the transition of Venus a while back, that it was back in 2013. It was just moving really slow, and
Hmm.
it took like, what was it, 8 hours to get across, something like that, just really slow, super slow, because the way it was going. Anyway, this thing, you can see it in less than 15 minutes. It crosses the sun, and it's
Oh,
huge in comparison to the sun. So I mean, it's not, the sun's huge. This thing's about that big. Still, that's pretty. That's way bigger than Earth, and these things are. I've seen photos that my friends have taken of this blue striped planet that's out there, and you can find it in the webcams. That blue striped planet, they're doing a great job of hiding it. She was taking a picture of reversed rainbow in the sky. She just thought it was interesting. There was no clouds. There was no, just that's that stuff they're spraying up there, and there were a lot of chemtrails that day. So she takes a picture and she sends it to me. Immediately, I see the blue striped planet. That's the atmosphere reflect. The sun's reflecting on it. It's causing that rainbow look to it. And once I showed it to her, she couldn't stop. She knew exactly what it was. So
yeah, because
that
it
was
bows away
fascinating.
from the sun rather than around it, like we typically see a halo or a bow around the
Yeah,
sun. And
and
this
it's
is
on the
actually
side of the sun,
opposite.
so we're not going to see it at night.
Right.
We see the moon.
Yeah, and actually, I forgot I sent you that clip today where there was something else that looked like a crescent of some type of planet in the sky caught on. And then I don't know if you noticed in the clip, it was from today. I think Mr. MBB333 put it out, but you could see the camera just going nuts. The stabilization was making the picture just go nuts. But it's within the first 3 minutes of today's video. Uh,
Also, I want to add something on Planet X, and
mhm.
this is this is, I have no scientific basis for this. It's more what friends of mine that are very intuitive are picking up, and something to do with legends. But this Planet X, okay, when it came through the last time, it caused plagues of Egypt all over the world, and the time before that was the flood of Noah. So when Jesus says it'll be as in the days of Noah, that's what he's talking about. This thing returns. Okay. Anyway, this time, if you remember Lilith, the legend of Lilith, Lilith was the first female created before,
Mhm.
or actually one of created before Eve, not necessarily the first one. Might have been Tiamat who was first, but Lilith was a little too, how would you say, not docile, not just wanting to cow or follow orders or whatever. I actually like Lilith, but Lilith was shunned. Like, you need to go. You just go into the wild, get away from here. And they saw this dark star as a sort of Lilith. She's banished out into the darkness, and then she comes back in, towards the light, the sun, and the sun's like, no, no, go, don't want you, go back. And so you're being shunned. You love this person, you love this being, but you're being shunned from them. It's a weird, really weird sensation when you actually feel it, and you're not upset. You're not upset. You wish the best for this person, but they don't want you. And this time, however, it's different. She's accepted, and that has to do everything with the feminine coming back into its, where her rightful position is. And what they're seeing in their visions is that the two are moving together, and it's been out there for a long time, right? Since like almost 2003, they're starting to get pictures that it's been there. Well, eventually the two will actually start co-orbiting each other, the sun and the dark star. And I'm not sure if it'll be this dark star or the bigger one, the one that's are just moving in now. But at
Mhm.
any rate, it'll look like a yin yang in the sky. You'll see the two suns, the dark and the white one, moving. And that now all of a sudden you've got a whole new dynamic. So as above, so below, our DNA takes a whole nother change again. So it might be part of what's about to happen, but it's not going back out. Planet X is not going back out. It's somehow staying in orbit with the sun. It should have gone out already a long time ago. The longest it's ever stayed in, according to legend, is 7 years. That's it. It comes in, goes around the sun, and shoots back out. 7 years. And it's not like a comet, because comets speed up as they're coming in. This thing was documented slowing down as it was coming in. And this one Japanese physicist, I forget his name, But this, I almost have the name of that factor. He said when two stars come together, he did it mathematically, they start repelling each other so they don't crash into each other. And the Josee factor, anyway, that the two start repelling each other. Well, if this was a sun and not a comet, they would start slowing each other down. The bigger one would start slowing the little one down. And that's exactly what we saw.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Was that Michio Kaku that said that, or?
No, this is a guy named Josee, I believe. It's called the Josee mechanism. It's a mathematical theory he got. I don't know if he got a Nobel Prize for it, but he was noticed for it.
So back to the pyramid thing that you mentioned. You were saying they were finding pyramids and they were being activated. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Okay, what they said was, what they're finding is that there's an energy, and this energy, it's a substance, okay, but you can take this substance as a living conscious being, and you literally create with it. You can create anything. You could create an animal with it. You could create a rock with it. You could create a planet if you had enough of it, okay? And it's never been on the Earth, ever. And this is what was troubling my friend. He goes, how could it not be on Earth? It's on every planet that's created, but it wasn't on Earth. And so she had to ask me about my research with, I said, well, if it was ripped apart from Tiamat, Tiamat would have had it, but the section that got ripped away might not have had it. And that would explain, why Earth never had it. And apparently it's like an ingredient like baking soda. When you're going to bake a cake, you have to have that ingredient in there. And as this energy is coming in, that ingredient needs to be on Earth, but they couldn't bring it to Earth, apparently, the ones that are here, all the ships there's millions of ships out there, but they could not release it on Earth because the Cabal knows what the stuff is. And if they got their hands on it, they could manifest all sorts of hell with it. So they had to modify it in such a way that they could not use it for any purpose. And so now it's been introduced to the planet. It's like a black oily substance. And it's moving from the inside of the planet outward, and it's causing the manifestations to take place, the magic, literally magic, to sort of start up again, almost like a Game of Thrones, where that guy goes, have you had any reports of dragons? Because our magic's working a lot better now. And that's kind of what's happening, actually, on the Earth. Magic is literally becoming it. And if you want to claim a miracles like magic, because I've seen miracles and it looks like magic. I've seen a broken hand that was incredibly swollen, like when a bee stings you, or like it's just really big. The cast had already come off, been off 6 weeks. It had been broken for 6 weeks, and the cast came off and the hand was still incredibly swollen. He could hardly move the fingers. And I did work on him and immediately went down to size, just stopped being swollen. The color went away. It looked normal and he could flex it a little bit, quite a bit. And we were both just like in shock. Like, what just happened?
Wow, that's totally like what Jesus was saying, and you do the things he did, because you see these TV evangelists, and I never see them like stretch out a limb or do something you can actually see. It's always receive your healing and it's on the inside or whatever. But Jesus always did types of healings that it was evident. Somebody with palsy and their limbs stretch out.
Get up and take a stretcher with them.
Yeah. Or now couch. Did you know it says couch now in the Bible?
Oh, a lazy boy recliner.
Yeah, really. So yeah, we got.
Well, it says corn. It says corn, that the disciples were walking to the field and they grabbed some corn and started chewing. Have you ever tried to chew on corn? Seriously. Anyway, corn wasn't discovered. Wasn't in the New World, the Old World, until Columbus introduced it from the New World. 1,500 years later. So it wasn't corn. Trust me.
Okay, so you've had some time to enjoy some of the changes in the Bible. There's another one with napkin and.
Have you seen the ones where these women? I think it's in, I'm not going to say Ezekiel because I'm not sure it's in his, but you can Google it and you'll find it. He's saying that the women of the tribe are kind of leaving because they like these other men. They're hung like army mules, basically. Right. And it's in the Bible. And you're like, wait, that was not in there before.
Yeah. That's so funny. Yeah, I think that is Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it even goes in a little bit deeper. I don't even want to say it; it's so bad. Yeah. But yeah, and that's wild, And then the fact that people don't see it is just equally as bizarre. And it seems like a lot of the most famous ones. Like, I mean, how many times have we heard? Yeah, the Lion and Lamb, and Matthew 7:1, judge not lest you be judged. It's different now, and all of these, it's like, what the heck?
There's a guy, he has some videos out. Someone said he ended up getting killed, but it's, God, he has a weird name. It'll come to me in a minute. He has a really weird name. I did post some of these, I believe, on the Acolyte, but he was having problems in his room. Weird stuff was happening in his room, and he went and took a Bible and opened it to I think it was Ezekiel 11:6, the one, Isaiah 11:6, the one about the lion and the lamb, right? So he lays it on the bed, and he gets his camera. He comes in and he reads it, and I took a picture of it. It says, "The lion shall lay with the lamb." But if he takes the Bible out of the room, it changes back to the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. And as he's walking in with a Bernstein Bears book, the letters change, and he walks back, and they go back. He's amazing with graphics.
Yeah, he's amazing with graphics.
Or it's happening, but because he's a good actor too. Because he sounds very scared.
Yeah, and he does another one where he's looking out the window and switches to a different room.
Oh,
and
the
looks out
car.
the window.
There's a car, and it's not in the other room. And it's there if he goes in the bedroom, but it's not in the other room. Yeah.
I went to a college for special effects, and that's the types of things. I wouldn't doubt it if he's a special effects student, and those were assignments, and he just posted them because, I mean, I posted stuff like that, and I never said it was anything real, but he, I guess, gravitated towards the Mandela effect. But the thing is, the one that gave him away for me was the Bible one you mentioned, because it used to say the lion shall lie down with the lamb, and now it says the wolf will dwell with the lamb, and he just wolf, it's a lion.
When I looked at that, no, it changed. It says the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, but it said the lion shall lay down with the lamb. And I took pictures of it. I remember I told you I took pictures of it. It's onion skin paper, and it's printed. So he would have had to go get a printer to do it, or he's got some amazing graphics, because it's exactly the way it would look, as if it was that real thin onion paper, you know, like in the King James version. Yeah, that very thin paper.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can't remember right offhand, but it was the scripture didn't seem like, it just seemed like he switched it, but I'll have to go revisit it again. He might have fixed it too. Who knows?
He has a weird name, Goofy something or Duffy something. I cannot remember.
Oh yeah, name. I think
when I come across it.
Seems like it was Fat something, Fat Jack or something.
Oh,
I can't remember though. Maybe Chubby something, or seemed like something referring to him being overweight.
Yeah, you're right. It was Fat something.
But yeah.
Well, the Matrix, that one blew me away. Okay, forget Tyson never biting the guy's ear off. That's incredible.
Oh yeah.
But the Matrix, you know, I know that Gloria Foster, the Oracle in the first movie, was not the Oracle in the second movie, because that Chinese guy with the white coat and the glasses that fights Neo, he's protecting the new one, right? She has a bodyguard because of that, and she's much smaller frame, wears her hair up, and that's Mary Alice, that actress. But now Gloria Foster stars in the second movie, and you go to WikiLeaks and it mentions she starred in the first and second Matrix.
Wow.
I'd like to talk to Neo, Kevin, what's his name? Keanu Reeves, yeah, and ask him, you know, do you remember, which one do you remember with you in the movie? Because, you know, he was with both of them. He was with the one in the first one, and then it got changed, and now it's Gloria Foster in the second movie. You cannot find a Matrix movie with Mary Alice in it. They're not there. I don't care if it's an old video. It's VHS. She's on there.
Right. And the whole red and the blue part, the pill parts changed. Like I think, what if I told you everything?
That's not in there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's not. I went through the whole thing when I saw that. I said no, and you can see it all over the Matrix. I mean, all over the Matrix, all over Facebook, where you've got that quote. What if I told you the world? You know, you're in it.
Yeah, and you've got memes from it, and even the reason I brought it up, I knew you would notice, is because you said something in your book along those lines that were sort of building off of that. I don't know if it's the book I just read today, but it was sort of playing on that. You can't unlearn something. The whole, once you take the red pill, you've taken it. You know.
It was a quote. It might have been the quote from that guy from Oklahoma. He said, "I've never met a man I didn't like." Anyway, this quote, I looked for it all over the internet. I could not find where he said it, but I do remember him being accredited with it. And he said, a mind stretched by an idea will never regain its original shape. So,
yeah, I do appreciate the quotes in the books. That's a lot of great knowledge. It's been there all along, you know.
Yeah.
Well, so, awesome, man. Do you think you're going to come back when the book?
Yeah, the second book has a tremendous amount of information on it, on the evidence for Judah being the twin. One of them is in the Gospel of John, and John did not write John. It does not mention John wrote it. John was nowhere near the actual crucifixion of Jesus. It's always, you know, if you see movies of the Gospel of John, he's there with Peter, and they're seeing the trial, and Judas, you know, turns him in or whatever. But it is theorized that that author would have been possibly Mary Magdalene or Lazarus. I lean more toward Lazarus. And the guy who wrote the Apocalypse, the Revelation, that was John. The one who wrote the Gospel of John, totally different style, totally different language. So he wrote one of the two, but it wasn't both. And the Apocalypse was the one he wrote. Okay, so John, in that one, Peter was with him the whole time, right? I mean, Peter went along with Jesus after the arrest. He followed him. He saw the trial. It says he saw the trial, and then he heard the rooster and crow 3 times. And then at the end, in the Gospel of John, and this is the only place it shows up, where there's a fisherman, they're out in the Galilee, and then they see someone on the banks, and he says, throw your net over the right side or something like that. And then they can't pull it up because there's so many fish in it. Then Peter recognizes it's Jesus, and he dives in the water and swims to shore. And the other guys drag the net to shore. Shortly after that, if you follow that line, Peter is walking with Jesus, and he says, what about this guy? What's going to happen to him? And I think it's Lazarus, right? And he says, the disciple whom you loved. And in other parts of the other books that are not in the Gospels, it says the disciple whom Jesus loved was Lazarus. But Lazarus was a 10-year-old boy. And Lazarus, he grew up with Jesus because he was married to Mary Magdalene, who was his sister. Anyway, Peter stops Jesus, and it's in the Gospel of John. And he says, Lord, who is it that betrays you? It just shouldn't be there, especially from John, John is has the most cutting remarks and the worst things to say about Judas. And for him to have that in that gospel saying, well, wait a minute, which one betrayed you? It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, I think the evidence is overwhelming that things aren't as we've been taught they are anyway. You know what I mean? It's like,
and the word betrayal is not the word that's in there. Jesus never said he would be betrayed, but they had to put it in because all of the savior gods before Jesus, whom the sacrificial lamb and you're sinners, and he had to die for you because you're worthless, and he has to bring you back. All those beliefs are savior god beliefs, and all those savior gods were all betrayed. And they were crucified and they resurrected. Jesus was not betrayed. He was arrested, crucified, and resurrected. So they just kind of infiltrated the church, and then they sort of basically took over. I mean, these were educated men. Paul was an educated man. I brought that up earlier. Well, all these priests who ran these churches were very educated, and any Christian, who were the Christians? They were the slaves and the poor people. They didn't know how to read. Okay, so who did? Well, the priest coming into the church, and who got to read the sermon to them, because it was a religion based on scripture, yet nobody could read. So these priests kind of moved into positions of power. And in Acts, Peter and Paul both warned the readers, their followers. They said, do not believe these individuals. And what are these individuals saying? He is a demigod like Hercules. He's half God, half man. That's what they're saying. And Peter and Paul are both saying, and it's quoted, and they're still they haven't changed it yet. It says, he was born according to the flesh. He is of the line of David. That means he's human.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what they're saying, in case you don't understand the lingo, that he was fully human. And he had to be fully human to show that a fully human being could convert to a light body, which is what we're about to do. Oh, you were speaking about the Lord's canon and us coming back. Yeah, that was not, it was not several times done over and over. It was done. We did not come to experience what we're about to experience. This is kind of like icing on the cake. I am convinced we came back as cannon fodder for the apocalypse. Basically, came in to we were masters of light and we were warriors, and so we were our loosh, our life energy is something valued, but they don't want you on the planet because you're going to cause problems. So if you get your memory erased and they attach an archon or two to you and possible demon or not, and a few entities, and then implant you as well, then they're okay. They can just feed off your loosh and give you misery all the way through on till 2012, 2013 when the contracts end. You heard there was a contract. Okay, well, the contracts ended and Ison didn't destroy the planet because we had assistance. So now the contracts have ended and you've got all these loose cannons on the planet who are starting to wake up. And most of the people who are out there listening to this, you started waking up 2013, 2014, really realizing, well, wait a minute, maybe I'm not who I think I am. Maybe I'm here to do something else or whatever. And now that this is coming, that was unexpected. And the possibility of all these, we were already warriors. We were already masters. We didn't come here to school to learn some lessons. We had already mastered all those lessons. We came to be cannon fodder, to sacrifice ourselves, not to save Earth. We came to save our loved ones who were being wiped out in the galaxy. And so that's why they're here to watch what we're about to do. And this changeover, you're basically taking people who are already light masters and you're converting them into like a Jedi Knights, and now you're going to give them all the powers of Jesus Christ and also Neos in the Matrix thrown together, and these beings are going to be incredibly powerful. And so a lot of the guys out there, they really don't like this because we're going to be far more advanced than they ever were, because they didn't want to come down here. They couldn't come down here. They were never human. They wouldn't have survived it. But it mentions in the Bible that we will go beyond the angels. Well, who are the angels? Messengers from Creator, and those are the ones out in the ships right now. So we're going to go whatever level they're at. And a lot of them out there, honestly, I don't see them any different than demons. A demon is polarized to the negative, incredibly negative, and that's all they do. They don't really do a lot of good. But these individuals, they're polarized to the positive, so much so that they're willing to sit there and just watch everything go to hell, just to observe and be witnesses and try and help us out by watching what we're doing, which is not helping at all. So I see them in the same boat with the demons, and I think the energy is going to take them out too, because they can't survive. This energy, you have to have both sides of the coin. You have to be balanced, and you've got to accept all parts of yourself as being whole. David goes into that at the end of that particular talk. He says, you can't say this part of you's no good and throw it away. You have to bring it with you. You have to accept it and be loving and forgiving of yourself, that okay, well, whatever happened, you're going through an illusion. It's just like a test. It's okay. You're really not this being. You're something else altogether. You just don't realize it, but just kind of hang in there a little longer. You're a lot more powerful than you believe you are, and all this will be over soon.
I'm sure a lot of people can take that and be encouraged by it, because I know a lot of people are like, come on already.
Yeah, I don't think 2018 will go by without something. It's already happening, and it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So.
All right,
also, all those out there with the RV money, that sort of stuff. Some people are going to say some things pretty soon, very soon, that are going to upset you. You're going to want to burn it, throw it away in the trash, or whatever. Please do not. That they would love for you to do that. We are so close. It has been seen. This is part of our future. It is how we show the off-worlders that we can fix the planet, even though we didn't tear it apart. No.
Definitely. Well, be encouraged. And were you actually saying not to throw away the money or the RV?
The money, the RV we don't have control over. It's taking place, but the all those Zims and dinars and all that, just hold on to them. Don't put any attachment to them, and do not plan your life like it's happening Monday. Please don't. Just continue running your life like it's not even there. But the Nasara is happening. Even if that weren't to work, Nasara, if you know anything about what Nasara is, that is the canceling of debt, the abolishment of the IRS system and the Federal Reserve, because they were set up without the ratification required by the states in order to make it constitutional, and they added into the Constitution without that. All that is part of the U.S. corporate conglomerate, and all that's pretty much coming to an end.
That's nice to know. Because I know a lot of people are sick of the grind, you know, sick of being poor, sick of not having enough.
Did you hear about Trump, the executive order he just signed, ending poverty in the U.S.?
Yeah, I did hear that. It was supposed to open
Okay,
them up
that's
to some stuff.
Nasara. Okay, and don't be too concerned about World War III. They're basically doing that to carry out what's supposed to be carried out. There will be no nuclear detonations. It's not going to be permitted. It's just not going to be permitted. That's why you haven't seen any. Cheney was saying there was going to be nuclear detonations. If Cheney's telling you there's going to be nuclear detonations and he's coming to TV and talking about it over and over, there's going to be a nuclear detonation. And there wasn't. There wasn't, because those teams were finally irradiated. They would not stop trying to set off those damn things. So it will not be permitted. So they broke too many rules. They violated too many universal laws, and they pretty much crossed the line. So there's some things that simply will not be permitted again.
And I think that's what we saw with Japan and Hawaii, right?
Yeah. Those people got a red pill that morning.
Yeah, it's like the official story was so laughable, man. That like the X.
Oh, yeah, one button. Minutes. There's like 7, 8 buttons. Yeah, and people you had to go through. Yeah.
Yeah, and 2 people 8 foot apart that had to, you know, sort of like in war games where nobody could accidentally do something like that. It's set up, you know, it's idiot proofed, as we used to say back at that place.
I heard there was a missile launch and that it was
zapped out. Yeah, that's amazing, man. So yeah, and then we talked last time about, you know, Alaska had the huge earthquake and all the tsunami warnings went off, but yet nothing ever happened. The waves
were visible. They were visible on radar, and I mean on satellite, and then they just vanished.
Yeah. So what's up with that? I mean, we've got unseen help.
They can control. Wilcock describes these SEAL teams that were sent out to destroy some oil rigs to cause problems in the Saudi Arabia, that area of the world, and the teams encountered something like a gelatin, like a big plastic. They couldn't get past it. Their knives wouldn't cut into it. They couldn't swim over it. They just kept trying and trying. They ran out of oxygen and they had to go back. So these it's just like the movie what was it, the Abyss. They could control water. So you can make waves and you can slow down the waves, or you can stop the waves. They can control pretty much everything.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Do you think that's do you think the water pulling away from the shores is something like that, or
no? That's a gravity thing. That's that real big one coming in. That's doing that. And then you've heard of those big ships. Corey Good speaks of the ones the size of Neptune, and I mean those really large craft. Well, if you get enough of them on the other side of Earth, they'll offset the gravity somewhat. So we're not too devastated by it. Those things are out there. The whole blue avian, I hear, oh, there's no such thing. I've encountered them. Okay, so just put me in the same category with Corey, I guess. If you get a problem with the blue avians, I had to call several friends. Like, I got a damn blue avian here, and he's in my periphery. I'm looking at him. What the hell is going on? And they're saying, well, he can't get any closer to you because there's this one thing you will not let go of. Something in your past, something in karma, something you will just not let go of. And it was something that was done to me. And I just said, yeah, I'm coming back to Earth, but I'm remembering that one. You're not pulling this crap on me again. And then I relived it. I went through it, and I saw it in a whole different light, and I let it go.
So, I mean, you can understand now that you've actually experienced it, how hard it was for you to believe, and you saw it with your own eyes. So I completely get people that don't, you know, because like I said, I take his information, put it on the shelf. I don't disregard it, but it is hard to believe. But I understand how I did the same thing with Mandela Effect before I actually saw something change that I knew had changed with my own eyes, and I was like, holy crap.
Wait till you walk into the living room and see this painting, this beautiful painting hanging there, and you can tell it's been there for a while because the paint's kind of faded on the back wall, and it's, you know damn well you didn't buy it, and you're like, well, where'd that come from? You know, and your friends, oh, don't you remember back in Italy you got that vacation you took? You're like, what vacation?
Oh man. Yeah, that's trippy, man.
That's going to start happening, so get ready for it.
So I don't disregard anything now unless I got a reason to, you know what I mean? I always consider it, at least. Have an open mind. That's really what, you know, your information's all about, is having an open mind, looking at it, and drawing your own conclusions.
Questioning everything, literally questioning everything. Come to your own. You have to have a platform to stand on. I found that out the hard way. You literally have to have a platform that you stand on. These are your beliefs until something more credible allows you to make some changes or some drastic changes, but you need something to stand on because someone's going to come along with something so wild and so crazy, it's going to send you tumbling mentally, and in your little world, you're not going to do so well. So you need to have something you stand on. It may not be true for everybody, but it's true enough for you that you say, I can at least hold that these things are real in my reality until I'm shown otherwise. You still have an open mind. You can make some changes, but you need something to gauge by, I guess, measure things by.
That's why I find the safest place is to cling to the top of the fence, not get sucked into anything too much, you know, because then you got something to hang on to, and you're not, you don't get blindsided if you're stuck in a worldview and you can't really see other things. If you're sort of, your perspective is back, you can typically.
Blindsided is what a lot of humans are about to get, and people are trying to sugarcoat this energy wave that's coming in. It will knock you down. It's like a grenade concussion. It's going to break windows. There will be a lot of people that are not going to make it just because of the wave itself, the energy that's coming in. You will be where you need to be, and you'll be safe. You'll be fine. I can't tell you more than that, but I wrote in
bodies aren't all of us. We're more than these. So
some of us were born a little bit spiritual. We had that inkling in us, you know, and some aspire to it. But the rest of humanity is about to have it thrust upon them, and they're not ready for it.
Well, I'm ready. Even if I don't make it, I'm ready. Just send it on. Let's move along here.
And it's okay. It's not a judgment. They made their choice, you know. And some of these individuals who can't take the wave, there will be a tremendous amount of, I guess, abductions as well. And that might be what they're missing. They will, like Corey, David mentioned that. He'll be in a room, a white light shows up, and somewhere else. And the ships can do that. And they're going to do that for a lot of these individuals who, basically good people, but they were dumbed down by the system, and they believe authority, and they try not to rock the boat. So those individuals, they're still savable. They will be taken off the planet. This is what Angela was talking about. And they'll literally be gone. You're just going to be watching TV or whatever, and then you're just going to be somewhere else. So those individuals, they cannot take the energy of the wave coming in. It would be detrimental to them. However, if they were sort of brought up to speed, they could be reintroduced once the wave's already here. So view the wave as water coming in, just a huge tidal wave coming in. Everything in front of it's getting smashed or pushed away, and so a lot of people can't survive that. However, they can bring you back in, and you can dive into water. You'll be fine. You understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's sort of pulling you away for the impact.
The arriving energy is and that's what we need for the light bodies activation, but they're not at a level where they could take that, but they could re-enter that energy, be in a loving state, and eventually become light bodies. It might take them 13 years, who knows, but they'll be light bodies.
That's awesome. Yeah. I want to thank everybody in the chat for showing up and sticking with us. We've got 229 people in here. Once again, the link to Joseph's book is in the description. And if you want to post the link to your the Acolytes Quill, do you let's see, it's on Facebook. If they actually search, let me type it in here while I got you here.
Yes, Facebook. The Acolytes Quill, it goes right to it.
Okay, and it's spelled ACOLYTE. '. And then Quill is just Quill or
Quill, like a pen, like the feathers they used to write with the quills.
Oh, right.
And an acolyte was a student of forbidden knowledge. So.
Smart guy with a smart name that a lot of us don't even understand.
You're like, what does that mean?
The Quill. All right. So I got another Facebook group. Now there they can actually find the link to get the 30-day free trial. So it won't even cost you anything. You can just don't forget to cancel it at the end of the 30 days. I do that. I've done that with audiobooks and Audible, and now you can do it with Amazon books as well. So. And
the book's only $2.99, so it's not that much anyway.
All right. Well, I'd love to have you back, man, at the time when it's actually hot off the press and people can actually get, because this book here is the sort of in between his two books book, and it's a short read. But this other one's coming out, you said, in summertime, right?
Summertime.
All right, perfect.
And that'll be the last one. There's only two.
That's perfect, man. Well, I do appreciate having you on, man, and love to have you back sometime. Always welcome.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen after the second one. It's going to be really close to the event when it comes out. So.
Well, cool. Maybe we can report on it live or something. Who knows?
Okay.
Well, thanks to all of you guys, and have a good one. Lots of love and light to all of you guys. Thanks again, Joseph.